Finally, it's time for me to cover the Druid and all the changes in Mist of Pandaria. And of course also the new talent system and what we can choose. Symbiosis is a new spell you can cast on a friendly player. This will give you one of their spells and the other way around. It all comes down to what talent you're using. If you for example Resto Druid and you cast this on a Warlock, you will be able to use the Demonic Circle. It doesn't matter what specialization your friendly player are using, it all comes down to your own. An example, if you choose to cast this on a Death Knight and you're playing as balance, you will be given Anti-Magic Shell. If you were however playing Feral, you would instead be getting Death Coil. So when you're going to raid or PvP as a Druid, it's gonna be so important that you cast the spell on the right target with your right specialization in order to get the correct spell. All Druids will also get a 3 minutes cooldown that increases the maximum health by 30% for 20 seconds. It will activate Bear form, but if you leave this form, the buff will also be removed. In Mist of Pandaria, there's now going to be a Feral specialization and a Guardian specialization, where some of the spells you used to get as a Feral Druid in Cataclysm will no longer be at if you choose to for example play as a Guardian Druid. In other words, Guardian Druids are mainly for tanks and people who would like to be playing in Bear form, where Feral Druids will be playing in Cat and not have the same amount of survivability. Talking about Feral Druids, Mangle has been buffed. This will now add a debuff to the target, reducing their movement speed by 50%. Simply amazing if you like to PvP. As a Guardian Druid, you get a new ability called Bear Hug. You will be stunning the target for 3 seconds, and every second you will also be dealing 10% of your health as damage, so a total of 30% damage. On top of this, the Druid will also be immobilized during this duration. 3 of our Bear form abilities has been removed, and this is even though you specialize into Guardian. When you are playing tank, you can't swap into Cat form and use your Shred and Savage War, as these 2 abilities has been removed from your spellbook. So simply just forget about swapping into Cat form to deal damage, it's better just to stay in Bear form. And for those of you wondering about what mastery provides to a Guardian Druid, it's going to be increased armor. And as a Feral Druid, it will increase the damage done by your bleeds. But what about Resto Druids? What massive changes can we expect? The first one is Iron Bark, a 1 minute cooldown you can cast on any friendly player or yourself to reduce the damage you're taking by 20% for 12 seconds. Wild Mushroom will also change for Resto Druids. These will now be a way for you to heal, as all your overhealing done by your rejuvenation will be stored in the mushroom. The moment you have stored a decent amount of healing, you can then recast the mushroom close to many nearby allies. Next, you detonate this to be doing a lot of AoE healing. The last thing I would like to cover as a Resto Druid is the passive Killer Instinct. 100% of your intellect is also being turned into agility when you swap either into Cat or Bear form, so you can do some decent damage in these forms as you're leveling up as a Resto Druid. On top of this, you also get this passive as a Balanced Druid. And talking about the Balanced Druid, let's cover some of those changes. The first thing I would like to highlight is a new Glyph. Yeah, actually a Glyph. If you don't like the current Moonkin form, then you can use it to turn into an Astral form. While you're in Astral form, it will look like this, and you will simply be able to see your Druid with your Transmort gear without the Moonkin form. Hurricane has always been a great way to deal AoE nature damage, but now there's also an arcane equivalent called Astral form. This spell will become available the moment you eclipse into Lunar, as it's increasing the damage done by your arcane damage, which is provided by your Astral Storm. During this, you also won't be able to cast Hurricane until you eclipse into Solar. We can also change the appearance of our swim form with this Glyph. It will change it into an Orca. Alright, so what do the new talent system looks like? At level 15, you can choose Wild Charge. This allows you to charge an enemy in Bear form, leap behind a target in Cat form, but there's also going to be new things, such as increasing your swim speed by 150% for 5 seconds, being able to bounce backward in Moonkin form, but you need to be in combat, or in Travel form, leap forward 20 yards. The second option, Displace a Beast. you will automatically be traveling 20 yards forward, activating your cat form and increasing your movement speed by 50% for 4 seconds. Super useful in situations where you might also pull aggro and need to get away quickly. Else, you could always choose the passive that increases your movement speed by 15%. At level 30, you can pick Scenario and Ward, a 30 seconds cooldown you can apply to yourself or any friendly target. It will heal them for a high amount every 2 seconds for the next 6 seconds. It won't be consumed until the target is taking any damage. Renewal is also extremely powerful, only a 2 minutes cooldown that will instantly heal the druid for 30% of its maximum health. Else, you can always pick this passive that heals you for 5% of your maximum health every 5 seconds. And the moment you get to full health, it will simply be healing the most injured nearby ally. So it's a decent way to be doing some healing without having to change shape-shifting forms all the time. At level 45 you can choose Typhoon, and this is now usable in all shape-shifting forms, which is a big change. Even as a tank it can be useful to get a bit of distance from the targets, as it will also daze them for 6 seconds. The other option is to get Mass Entanglement. Not only will it root your current target, but it will also be spreading to nearby enemies, allowing you to have a huge amount of crowd control on many creatures at the same time. You can then get some distance to start doing AoE damage or whatever you desire to do. And this talent is honestly so amazing when you're mass pooling, even by accident. Barrier Swarm is not really a talent I like a lot, especially not when dungeon or raid farming, as there's going to be so many other classes who will have a slow effect by default. And if you're playing Feral, you will already be adding a slow effect to the target when you're using Mangle. In Burning Crusade, balanced druids could unlock Force of Nature at the bottom of their talent tree. This is now going to be a talent you can choose no matter your specialization, and depending on the specialization, the treants will be doing different things. For example, as Resto Druid, also healing nearby friendly targets. As Guardian, there will be taunting, and as Feral and Balance, there will be rooting and dealing damage. Incarnation is a powerful cooldown that will increase your performance for the next 30 seconds. As a balanced druid, the damage done by your arcane and nature damage is increased by 25%, while Eclipse. As Feral, you will be able to use your stealth abilities without having to prowl, and even in combat. You can also use Ravage without having to be behind the target. As Guardian, many of your melee cooldowns and growl has been reduced, and as Resto, the healing done will be increased by 15%, your armor is being increased, and many of your other important spells will be enhanced, such as instant entangling roots. Instead of choosing a 3 minutes cooldown, you could also go with Soul of the Forest, which is a passive that will increase your performance too, but the powerful thing is that you don't need to time a cooldown here. No, your performance will be steady throughout all of the dungeon, where Incarnation is a cooldown you would like to keep for a specific boss fight, and something you won't be activating on trash creatures. By the time you reach level 75, you can choose Mighty Bash, a 5-second stun usable in shape-shifting forms, but also without being in a form. So you can use this and follow up with a Cyclone or not a CC. What I prefer to choose is the Vortex. You will summon this and all creatures in the Vortex will have their movement speed reduced by 50%. On top of this, the moment they manage to leave the Vortex, they will be pulled back into this and still have their movement speed slowed. But it will only be working once on every single target. And you could always follow up with a Typhoon or a Mass Entanglement to get more distance. Else, you could always use the talent that disorientates all the targets within 10 yards of the druid for 3 seconds. Just be aware that if you have any dots on them or other people, for example, do Glyph or AoE damage, it will also break the CC. By the time you reach max level, you can have your damage and healing done increased by 12% for 30 seconds. And all your single target healing spells will also be dealing damage to a nearby target equal to 25% of the healing you're doing. All single target healing and damage spells will also be healing a nearby friendly target for 25% of the amount. Else, you could always choose the passive Dream of Scenarios. No matter your specialization, then this will improve the performance of one of your damaging abilities, and as you're dealing damage as a DPS, you will also be able to be doing more of healing. if this is for example needed or your healer is being CC'd. The last option, Heart of the Wild, that will passively increase your stamina, agility and intellect by 6%. On top of this, you can also activate the 6 minutes cooldown that will increase your performance. If you enjoyed this video, then you will definitely also be liking my other class changing videos. Those can be found on my channel, and soon I will also be publishing a lot of other useful Mist of Pandaria guides. So make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell to get notified when I post these. As always, thank you so much for watching and have an amazing day. Peace.